I don't know how I can respond. So much gaslighting from the very beginning. John has been on the ground in Gaza, yeah, as an embed. I love it when John and Douglas Murray and these people say, oh, we've been on the ground in Gaza. Yeah, as guests of the Israeli military that's doing the killing, starving and maiming, and you've come back and done exactly what they wanted to do. You've done their propaganda for them. Journalists have not been allowed freely into Gaza. That's why every major media organization on planet Earth has said to the Israeli government, you must allow journalists in. The Palestinian...
The other point here that Mehdi could have made is that the independent journalists that are on the, or were on the ground in Gaza, every single one of them has been targeted by the IDF. Drone strikes, missile strikes, air strikes, snipers, tanks, the whole works. There's no one left to tell the truth.
to do. You've done their propaganda for them. Journalists have not been allowed freely into Gaza. That's why every major media organization on planet Earth has said to the Israeli government, you must allow journalists in. The Palestinian journalists who are there have been killed in record numbers. Of course, Piers, you're right. They want to hide what they're doing. That's why they're killing the journalists there and blocking the journalists from coming in.
Yes,
this idea that 100%. He's been on the ground. Yeah, I did interview a doctor, a British plastic surgeon, Dr. Tom Patoka. And by the way, he wasn't in the European hospital because the hospital got bombed by Israel. So he was in another hospital, and he talked to me about how he has to treat patients who have maggots in their wounds. He has to treat patients without limbs. He has to treat children. I've interviewed multiple doctors on the ground in Gaza, actually in Gaza, not hanging around with Israeli military. And they've all said the same thing, American doctors, British doctors, Canadian doctors. They've all talked about how many kids they saw with sniper bullets to the head and chest. Israel does intentionally kill civilians. That's why Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant were indicted at the International Criminal Court for precisely those charges, for killing, willful killing of Palestinians, for murder and persecution. That's why they've been indicted. That's why every human rights group in the world says war crimes are being committed. They've killed people holding white flags. We've seen it with our own eyes. They've bombed buildings without warning with families inside, like the Al-Dos family that I often cite in October 2023. They've dropped 2,000-pound bombs on refugee camps full of hundreds of people.
One thing I learned about the 2,000-pound bombs, Chewie, the US Army would not use those in Vietnam because of the damage they did to the surrounding areas and the civilians it would kill. Except now my understanding is America is supplying Israel with 2,000-pound bombs. America wouldn't use them in Vietnam. I'm happy to be corrected if another country is supplying them, but I understand that America is supplying 2,000-pound bombs to Israel to use over Gaza. So that was obviously a war crime if they'd used them in Vietnam, and they acknowledged that, but they just give them to Israel, sell them to Israel to then
2,000-pound bomb is an enormous bomb.
It said something like it kills everyone within about 200 meters and damages most people within about 600 to 800 meters. So that's why they're basically a war crime, because you can't use them unless your enemy is in the middle of 6 rugby fields. You can't basically use them without damaging everyone within I think they said 1,000 yards. So,
and that is why Gaza looks the way it does now. It looks like the fucking moon because that's what they have been dropping willy-nilly.
Yeah.
As many justified criticisms of the US military that you can deliver over how they operated in Iraq, they did at least take a passing interest in minimizing collateral damage. So that's why they didn't use those bombs. Israel has no worries about it because they don't want a single building left standing in Gaza. They just want to bulldoze it all into the sea.
Yep. Let's let Mehdi get to the end of his epic, his own metaphorical bomb drop at the moment.
In October 2023, they've dropped 2,000-pound bombs on refugee camps full of hundreds of people. They have killed 7 aid workers in a clearly marked World Central Kitchen aid convoy. They've bombed World Food Programme convoys, leading to Cindy McCain, the wife of the most pro-Israeli senator of my lifetime, to come out and condemn Israel for attacking aid workers. John wants you to ignore Cindy McCain and British and American doctors and human rights groups and your own lying eyes watching people with white flags being gunned down. He wants you to believe him and his Israeli military minders.
There you go. And there is the end of the conversation forevermore, thanks to Mehdi Hasan. I don't think so, but if anyone else watched that, it feels like the end to me. There you go, Chewie. That's the end of my clips from Piers Morgan. As we've said, he's come to the light side. He's got a lot of catching up to do. It's almost like he's missed the first 3 terms of school. He's finally come to school in the first term, and now he's got all that work to catch up on to do the exams at the end of the year. Is that a good analogy? Are we okay with that?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
All right.
I'm
anything
just
you
trying to
want to add
find.
before we...
Yes.
Yep,
Yes.
cool.
So I want to show people what a 2,000-pound bomb looks like as far as what it does. And bear in mind that Israel has been dropping these on tents as well. That's
Zoom it in
small.
as much as you can.
So there you go. Look, you can see how deep the crater is and how big the crater is.
So
by
the
people standing around
the
it.
crater is, I mean, those men are going to be between 5'8" and 5'10", the tallest ones probably in Gaza, not a tall people. That if they stood in the middle of that, there's probably at least 1.5 of them. So it's probably a good 10 foot deep, I would guess, if you stood in the middle, maybe more.
That'd go through most multi-story concrete buildings.
Yeah.
And Israel's been happy to drop these in tents because they think one militant is in there.